The Ijaw National Congress (INC) stands as the apex body of the Ijaw Nation, Nigeria's fourth largest ethnic nationality. A people bound by identity, history, geography, and by an unyielding quest for justice. Since its inception, the INC has remained a formidable institution, nurturing unity, defending collective interest, and fostering progress. Like an anchor in turbulent waters, it has served as an exemplary voice for social, political, and economic justice not only in the Niger Delta, but within the broader Nigerian Federation. May 2021 ushered in a defining chapter in the journey of the Ijaw people. After years of leadership lacuna and structural uncertainty, the 8th National Executive Council emerged with a clear mandate to unify, protect, and reposition the Ijaw voice in the national discourse.
I would like to appreciate God Almighty for the privilege to become president of INC and also the grace that I've seen it thus far. INC was in comatose for about 8 years.
So with those crises that were happening at the time, and with someone feeling that his tenure has not expired.
Senator Derek took over the mantle of leadership of the state. Electoral body was put up with Professor Fobra, and they conducted an election, free, fair. In the history of INC, I think that has been the fairest election, accepted by everybody. At the end of the day, there were no petitions. That in itself provided a background for a stable INC.
When we came into the office in the INC, there was virtually nothing like the INC. INC was actually comatose because the people who were running it before, I would say, ran it aground. So when we came in, there was nothing on ground. We didn't have office. We didn't have even a place to start from. But as God will have it, right now we have an office, even though not befitting in the real sense of it, but it's something to start up from.
From the outset, the 8th National Executive Committee adopted a consultative, inclusive, and institutional approach to leadership. Governance was not to be symbolic, it was to be structured. Direction was not to be assumed, it was to be collectively defined.
We met God, we met the people, but there were no files, because of that gap. There were even no offices. We just got and said we have to start up the process. So we occupied a space downstairs, all of us cramped into one office, no toilets, facilities. We're just very serious that it's not what we meet that the issue, it's what we change that is more important.
The Conference of the Ijaw Traditional Rulers and Elders, C3, as a revered organ of Ijaw leadership, facilitated a seamless handover process, laying the foundation for stability and continuity. With this institutional transition came renewed legitimacy. Thus, it began with listening to traditional rulers, elder statesmen, political leaders, and the Ijaw people.
About 10 years ago, I would say, there was a major issue with respect to succession in the Ijaw National Congress, where there were issues of legitimacy, and then people outstayed their tenure, and there were court cases, a lot of them. And so it was difficult to get a new regime, so to speak, a new leadership. At the end of it, it was like everything had expired in INC. The only thing that was still there was C3. So C3 convened several meetings, here in Bayelsa State from all the regions, all the zones. And then at the end of the day was able to also pacify all the interest groups, in the best way possible. Some were like, look, you must let go, so that the Ijaw nation can progress. it was almost seeming like some other nations from elsewhere were pulling the strings and ensuring that the INC could not function, you know. So C3 did all of that and eventually settled every dispute more or less, and then got an ELECO on board. And the ELECO conducted an election that brought in Professor Ogilo Kaba, you know, to become the president about 5 years ago.
The visit to the Bayelsa State Governor, Senator Doye Diri, kickstarted this process. In Kiagbodo, the leadership paid a historic visit to the now late Pa E.K. Clark, a towering figure in the Ijaw struggle. It was more than a courtesy call. It was a moment of intergenerational alignment, wisdom meeting responsibility, experience reinforcing resolve.
We started with a visit to the governor of the state, Bayelsa. We also met with Pa Clark, now late, as chairman of the board of trustees. Delegates of the British Council in Nigeria.
Engagement extended beyond the Ijaw homeland. In a significant diplomatic move, the INC delegation visited President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa. For the first time in years, the Ijaw nation spoke directly to the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, asserting its presence, articulating its concerns, and reaffirming its relevance in the nation's polity. At home, institutional reform began. Among the earliest actions of the 8th National Executive Council was the reclamation and restructuring of the INC membership system. What was once fragmented was transformed into a cohesive and digitized database comprising memberships from all 78 Ijaw clans, INC chapters within Nigeria, and integrating diaspora chapters into a unified structure.
So we hit the ground running. As soon as we came in, I have to design a program for us to visit all the zones. We call it Stakeholders Summit that takes us around from the eastern zone to the western zone and to the central zone.
For almost 8 years, INC was not functioning. So until this, the 8th NEC, which means it was the 7th NEC that had that problem. So the 8th NEC come on board and was able to midwife most of the turbulence issues and bring the over 78 clans and the chapters, both Europe and America, bring them together and form a formidable front.
When we came in as an ESCO, there was no record of who is an INC member and who is not an INC member. When the new leadership came, I think they didn't really get a comprehensive register, so to speak, so they had to do most of the registration afresh. Yes, they may have been handed over a few documents, but it wasn't definitely comprehensive. However, like I said before, if you are leading an organization, your strength is also dependent on how much money you have and how many persons identify with the organization. So even though, yes, every German says, well, INC is his, is part of it, I can tell you again for free that most persons have not registered and most persons do not pay dues. And so there has to be a way of making sure that every German sees a reason to register and sees a reason to also pay dues.
There is clear provision in the Constitution about membership. The Constitution says for you to be a member of the INC, you must be above 45 years of age. Either your mother or your father must be from Ijaw. So we took up that challenge to produce a digitized membership register.
This was not merely administrative reform, it was identity documentation. Its people properly counted, a nation properly organized, an effort that culminated years later into the production of a contiguous map of Ijaw nation.
The decision to go to do a map was actually provoked by incessant encroachment into Ijaw land. Today, if you see Biafra map, Ijaw territory is there. In fact, it's even drawn close to Yanagua. All of this is taken as Biafra. When the Odudu map is drawn, they take it down to Warri, take it down to Bomondi. No, we are not Igbos. We are not Yoruba people. By mouth. Then if you are not Yoruba, you are not Igbo. So who are you? Where are you? What is your map? So to address these multiple claims, we've said, let us now have an Ijaw territory. And it was done with the consent of the people. The cartographers went to the field and spent about 2 years interviewing people, getting boundaries, seismic locations, and when they came up with a map, it was contiguous. Today you can move from the eastern flanks, from eastern Obolo.
Democracy within the Congress reinforced through credible elections into its various organs. Executive committee elections were conducted across tiers to restore legitimacy, strengthen participation, and ensure continuity of governance.
So within 6 months, this ESCO conducted elections. Even communities, the community ESCO, we had clan elections, we had zonal elections, we have chapter elections, even our chapters in Europe. We inaugurated them, and they ran a 3-year cycle, and we've conducted another level of elections to all the organs. Talking about the clan, community, zonal, and chapter levels. The NRC is still running. Their tenure will be off in a couple of months, and I'm sure before the end of our tenure, we have a new set of NRC leadership. So the tree is still on. So we have all the structures resuscitated. We have our facilities to actually take off and stabilize the INC.
To further entrench internal democracy and institutional balance, the National Representatives Council, NRC, the legislative arm of the INC, was reconstituted and formally inaugurated. With this, Congress restored the principle of checks and balances within its framework.
My name is Elder Gabriel Benamaisia. I am the clerk of the National Representative Council of the Ijaw National Congress worldwide. We had a period of time that were no NRC, and the NRC was constituted about a year after they were constituted, and it was also inaugurated a year after them. As you know, the NRC is the legislative arm of the government, and legislative duties are bestowed on them. We had plenaries. We have had some of the works or submissions of the executives put under scrutiny by the House. We have succeeded in doing some resolutions that we have passed on to the ESCO, and which the ESCO has looked into some and some are there. Our duty actually is to look at the laws and how to review them and the workings of the whole organ.
The 8th National Executive Council also rekindled collective identity on a grand scale. The All Ijaw Summit was hosted as a platform for unity, strategic dialogue, and shared vision. It became a convergence of voices from youth to elders, professionals to traditional authorities, affirming that the future of the Ijaw nation must be collectively shaped.
The All Ijaw Economic Summit started from different zones.
And all sides of the struggle were brought on board to discuss and chart the way forward. The summit, the traditional rulers, the clergy, the youth wing, the political class and the business class of the Ijaw nation. The academia were involved in the summit. The summit was basically to chart a way forward for an Ijaw nation.
Cultural pride found renewed expression through the annual celebration of Ijaw Day every February.
The Ijaw nation has celebrated Ijaw Day a couple of times. I have attended, I think, about 2 or so myself. It's a good start, I would say. But if Ijaw is holding an Ijaw Day, it is supposed to be like thunder and dynamite. It's supposed to be volcanic. And so if we have just a few thousand persons in attendance, then in my opinion, it's not good enough. But before Professor Kaba, was that happening? Not really, which means that it's a major shift, it's a major growth. But have we arrived? No, which means that whoever that is going to come in next has to ensure that Ijaw Day occupies a real space in the lives of Ijaw people and sends that message to the rest of the world that there are a people called Ijaw people.
The current administration of Professor Benjamin Ogilo-Okaba has done a lot towards promoting Ijaw history, heritage, and culture. In the twilight of this administration, we are wrapping up a lot of projects, and one of the projects is the Ijaw Heritage Book, which of course has a language component in it. The present administration has been very serious about the preservation and promotion of Ijaw language. Indeed, there was also the proposal of setting up an Ijaw Language Institute right here in the Ijaw House. An Ijaw map has been produced by this administration and led by Professor Benjamin Ogilo-Okaba.
We're trying to resuscitate the Ijaw language. Yes, through that, their advocacy, we've met with the Ministry of Education, Bayelsa State. We've met with some institutions and some progress being made in this direction. As we speak, the Federal University of Turkey now has a language unit, and Ijaw language is now taught as a general studies course.
Advocacy remains central to the Congress mission. Through press releases, policy interventions, and sensitization efforts, the INC consistently defended Ijaw interests.
So at one particular time, the Ijaw nation was voiceless. We didn't really have a body or a structure that spoke for the Ijaw people until you came on board.
We were in comatose for like 7 years before 2021. So Ijaw people didn't have anybody to speak for them, and a whole lot of things went sour. And coming in 2021, it gave us an opportunity to give Ijaw nation a voice. And I think that's one of our greatest achievements, giving our people a voice.
Legal and policy engagements were strengthened, ensuring that the Ijaw voice was not only heard in public discourse, but represented in institutional spaces like the National Assembly on matters such as the Petroleum Industry Bill and its eventual enactment as the Petroleum Industry Act. In opposition to the controversial Water Resources Bill, the INC articulated clear positions, safeguarding ancestral lands, resource rights, and environmental dignity for the Ijaw people.
The Water Resources Bill, yes, it was one satanic bill that some enemies of Nigeria and the Niger Delta actually wanted to introduce so that they can, in the same manner that the obnoxious Land Use Decree or Land Use Act, and the PIA has actually frustrated every genuine effort make us benefit from what God has given to us. We were blunt about unacceptability of that bill. We needed advocacy at every level. International press briefings, national press briefings were held so that we can all be on the same page.
The Ijaw nation gave its voice. We went to the National Assembly. We didn't just do a normal write-up or press release. We also made our presentations. You know, at the presentation of the bill, we did our memoranda we sent to the bill. We also had a physical presentation at the National Assembly, yes.
During this time, the INC became a bridge for peace through interventions in communal disputes.
The INC mandate to the National Executive Council is to unify Ijaw people, is to go on advocacy for peace and development of Ijaw.
Who steals the fishing boats of the Ijaws in the creeks? Okay, Ijaws. Who kidnaps Ijaw people in their communities? Ijaws. Who kidnapped that Ogbia man from his house? Ijaws. Okay? Why won't an Ijaw man be able to take a boat from Nimbe Waterside or Yanagwa Waterside and go around the Ijaw nation the way I did in 1990?
My administration felt unification was primary, because if we are not united, we will not be peaceful. If we are not united, we will not move forward. So we had a sensitization tour in all the zones, organized all stakeholders together as much as we can cater for. And we spoke to them on the need to have unity of purpose. What should be the focus of Ijaw people, the Ijaw leadership, across board. The Degema Calabari crisis even took some lives, but we intervened. We have a report on it. Peretor Benin, there were issues as to community leadership, and we ventured into all of this. The Letu Benin, the same thing.
To encourage civic participation, sensitization campaigns were conducted to encourage voter registration and participation in the national population census.
The Ijaw people are estimated to be about 40 million by the population and rating. Some say that we are the fourth largest ethnic nationality, but for us it's an arguable one. We're also saying that we may be even the third or the second, but because these census things that are, but official record, we're the fourth largest.
We held interactive sections around the 3 zones of Congress, the Western, the Central, and the Eastern. It was not just because of census. Census was important only because at the time we were doing the interactive session, it was when National Population Commission was sensitizing people regarding census. The main reason for the sensitization was because, you see, INC was at its lowest ebb at that particular point in time. And we needed to bring people together, make people to still realize that the INC is there. So we went to Port Harcourt and gathered all our INC stakeholders in the Eastern Zone. For the one for the Western Zone, we also went to Warri and gathered all stakeholders from Ondo State, Edo State, and from Delta State, including all our clans and chapter structures were gathered in Warri. It was well embraced by both traditional rulers, INC people, and all that. We sensitized them, told them the need to set up all the structures, the need for membership registration, the need for population census, and even a lot more that concerns the Ijaw Nation and the INC.
The 8th National Executive Council blazed a trail for the Ijaw voice beyond the shores of Nigeria by scaling the rigorous registration process and getting accepted into the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, UNPO, as a member, a landmark achievement for the Ijaw struggle.
UNPO simply means Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization. It's an organization tied to the United Nations. The UNPO is basically for those nations and peoples that are not happy where they are, that are marginalized by their home governments and by the particular governments that oversee them.
UNPO is an organization, so we now have a seat. When UNPO meetings are summoned, the voice of the Ijaw Nation will be heard directly.
So it gives us a space in the UN as an independent people. So while Nigeria will be talking about Nigeria, the Ijaws will also go there and talk about the Ijaw Nation and what concerns us, what is bothering us, and what is not bothering us.
Myself and the secretary have attended 3 meetings. We introduced ourselves. The Ijaw flag is raised, the flag of Ogoni people is raised, and other countries all over the world. It is a platform for us to have our matters presented and discussed. It's also a platform to get support, financial and collaborative support.
With continuity in view,
it is very important, for any person who is eyeing this office that should be prepared to do things that will create that level of confidence in the people.
You cannot develop if you don't feel secure in your home. So the question remains, and that is for particularly the next set of leaders. Why should the Ijaw man or woman feel safer in Lagos and Abuja and abroad and not in Ijaw land? Why is it that the Ijaw man who has gotten some visibility, so some name, some money, whatever, be unable to sleep in his community? If the Ijaw nation will be able to defend itself against other nations, the first thing is that it must feel secure amongst itself. I think that any leadership that does not confront this is leaving the substance and chasing shadows. So in this regard, at least the current atmosphere is that we have not fared well in terms of safety of the Ijaw man in Ijaw land.
The 8th National Executive Council is poised to hand over not just renovated physical office spaces, but revived institutional arms, strengthened cultural identity, sustained advocacy, and a repositioned Ijaw voice.